Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Tanvi Taneja. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Britain announces largest asylum policy overhaul in modern times, reduces protections for refugees and end automatic benefits for asylum seekers. Russian President Vladimir Putin speaks to Benjamin Netanyahu via phone, discusses West Asia, including developments in Gaza, Iran's nuclear program and stabilization in Syria. India at COP30 urges developed countries to fulfill climate finance promises, warns failure makes nationally determined contributions unachievable. And in sports, World Boxing Cup Finals kicks off in India's Greater Noida. 130 boxers from 18 countries to participate. Indian boxers, including two-time world champion Nikhat Zareen, to fight for glory. Up first, news of UK's asylum policy. Britain said on Saturday it would launch the largest overhaul of policy on asylum seekers in modern times. Britain's government announced late on Saturday that it will drastically reduce protections for refugees and end automatic benefits for asylum seekers under new plans aimed at slashing irregular immigration. As part of the changes, the statutory duty to provide support to certain asylum seekers, including housing and weekly allowances, will be revoked. UK's Interior Ministry in a statement said that the measures would apply to asylum seekers who can work but choose not to, and to those who break the law. It said that taxpayer-funded support would be prioritised for those contributing to the economy and local communities. UK Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is expected to provide further details on Monday about the measures. Britain currently grants asylum to those who can prove that they are unsafe at home, with refugee status given to those deemed to be at risk of persecution. The status lasts for 5 years, after which they can apply for permanent settlement if they meet certain criteria. The UN Security Council will vote Monday on a resolution endorsing US President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan. Last week, the Americans officially launched negotiations within the 15-member Security Council on a text that would follow up on a ceasefire in the two-year conflict between Israel and Hamas and endorse Trump's plan for peace. A draft of the resolution welcomes the establishment of the Board of Peace, a transitional governing body for Gaza that Trump would theoretically chair, with a mandate running until the end of 2027. It would authorize member states to form a temporary international stabilization force that would work with Israel and Egypt and newly trained Palestinian police to help secure border areas and demilitarize the Gaza Strip. The United States and several Arab and Muslim-majority nations, including Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Turkey, called the UN Security Council to quickly adopt the resolution. Now, ahead of the UNSC vote, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu discussed the situation in West Asia over phone. This included developments in Gaza, Iran's nuclear program and stabilization in Syria in a phone call. Russia circulated a competing draft resolution to council members that does not authorize the creation of a board of peace or the immediate deployment of an international force in Gaza. The Russian version welcomes the initiative that led to the ceasefire. It only calls on the UN Secretary General to submit a report that addresses the possibilities of deploying an international stabilization force in war-ravaged Gaza. The Russian UN mission said in a statement that its alternative proposal differed by recognizing the principle of a two-state solution for the Israeli-Palestinian settlement. Meanwhile, Israeli protesters gathered in Tel Aviv on Saturday to demand the Israeli government appoints a committee to initiate a state inquiry on the events of October 7th. Demonstrators also demanded the return of remains of slain hostages from Gaza. Under an October ceasefire deal, Hamas agreed to the release of the last living hostages seized during the Hamas-led October 7th, 2023 attacks on Israel. India on Saturday sharply criticized developed countries for failing to meet their climate finance obligations. Speaking on behalf of the like-minded developing countries at the third high-level ministerial dialogue on climate finance at COP30 in Brazil's Belém, India said climate finance is a critical enabler of climate action in developing countries. India's negotiator Suman Chandra emphasized the critical need for predictable, transparent financial assistance from developed countries to enable developing nations to meet their nationally determined contributions. India made it clear that climate transition in the global south is being held back by broken promises. India's remarks highlighted the legal obligations set out by the Paris Agreement that developed nations are yet to fulfill. India specifically pointed out inadequacies in the new collective quantified goal revealed at COP29 and called for substantial, consistent financial support from wealthier countries. At this year's climate conference, developing countries have demanded that Article 9.1 be included on the official agenda for formal negotiations. The nationally determined contributions are national climate plans under Paris Agreement that set targets to cut emissions and adapt to climate change, guiding global efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Now, tens of thousands of people thronged the streets of the Amazonian city hosting COP30 on Saturday, dancing to thumping speakers in first large-scale protest at a UN climate summit in years. As the first week of climate negotiations limped to a close with nations deadlocked, indigenous people and activists sang, chanted and rolled a giant beach ball of earth through Belém under a searing sun. Others held a mock funeral procession for fossil fuels, dressed in black, pretending to be grieving widows as they carried 3 coffins marked with the words coal, oil and gas. It was the first major protest outside the annual climate talks since COP26 4 years ago in Glasgow, as the last 3 gatherings were held in locations with little tolerance for demonstrations. Egypt, the United Arab Emirates and Azerbaijan called the Great People's March by organizers. The Belém rally comes at halfway point of difficult negotiations and follows 2 indigenous-led protests that disrupted proceedings earlier in the week. The US military released a video it said showed a lethal kinetic strike on a vessel described as being involved in illicit narcotics smuggling in the Caribbean. On its X account, the US Southern Command said that the strike had occurred on November 10th at the direction of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. In the black and white video, the boat appears to be traveling at high speed when it bursts into flames and stops. The U.S. strikes against suspected drug vessels in the Caribbean and off the Pacific coasts of Latin America have killed dozens of people who President Donald Trump's administration calls drug trafficking terrorists responsible for thousands of deaths in the United States without providing evidence. Nicolas Maduro, Venezuelan president, on Saturday criticized planned military drills by Trinidad and Tobago, calling them a threat to regional stability. He accused the neighboring nation of allowing its waters to be used for exercises aimed at intimidating Venezuela. The exercises in waters off Venezuelan's Sucre state coast are scheduled to run from Monday to Thursday. The exercises take place amid broader U.S. military operations in the Caribbean, which include warships, fighter jets and thousands of troops, while U.S. President Donald Trump's administration says the operations target drug trafficking. Maduro maintains they represent a covert attempt to overthrow his government. Australia on Sunday cautiously welcomed President Donald Trump's rollback of his tariffs on red meat while pressing the US to eliminate all tariffs on Australian goods. Trump on Friday removed tariffs he had imposed on more than 200 food products amid consumer concerns about rising US grocery prices. Australia in 2024 became the biggest shipper of red meat to the US, offering lower prices and lean cuts that the US lacks. Among the various tariffs Trump has imposed on goods shipped into the US, he calls some of them reciprocal based on the size of the US goods trade deficit within a given country. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said his Labour government would continue to advocate for genuine reciprocal tariffs, which would be zero. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said Canberra would keep advocating their position.
We welcome the lifting of these tariffs. That's a good thing for Australian beef producers. We maintain a clear, consistent position. We do not support tariffs. We believe in being able to access each other's markets. We think that's in the best interests of consumers as well as of producers.
Mexico witnessed widespread protest on Saturday against the government of Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum at Zocalo Square. Youth-led protests were rallied under the umbrella title of Gen Z, referring to those aged under 28. Youth protesters threw rocks at the police in front of the government palace during a Gen Z march against President Claudia Sheinbaum. Thousands of people marched through the streets of Mexico to protest against drug violence and security policies of President Sheinbaum's government. Sheinbaum faces criticism due to several high-profile murders, mainly in the state of Michoacan. Families of 63 victims of a deadly nightclub fire in North Macedonia marched through Skopje on Saturday, calling for justice and accountability. Thousands carried photos of loved ones and questioned the authorities. The fire, triggered by sparks that ignited the roof of an unlicensed nightclub in Kosani in March, left 63 dead and over 150 injured as crowds fought to escape through a single exit. The trial of 37 suspects, including officials who approved licenses and club owner, band members, police and security staff, begins next week. Chileans will head to the ballot box on Sunday to elect a new president in a vote that is pitting the government leftist coalition against an array of right-wing candidates. This will be Chile's first presidential election since 2012. Where voting will be mandatory and those who do not vote shall face a fine. The security plan for elections includes the deployment of thousands of police officers and vehicles, along with 10 helicopters, to protect over 3,000 polling stations across the country. None of the 8 candidates in the running are expected to reach a majority needed to win outright, likely triggering a runoff election on December 14th. On to weather updates now. Southern California is on high alert as back-to-back storms hit Los Angeles, bringing heavy rain and raising serious fears of flooding and mudslides in wildfire-scarred areas. Forecasters warn that rain sweeping down from the San Francisco region could trigger floods, especially in places damaged by January's wildfires. Nearly 180,000 people have been evacuated as authorities prepare for possible flooding and mudslides. The storms may ease by Sunday, but more rain is expected later in the week. Storm Claudia is causing dangerous weather across Europe, from severe flooding in southern Wales to deadly storms and a tornado in Portugal. Several areas remain on high alert as authorities warn of serious risks to life and property. In southern Wales, Storm Claudia's heavy rains caused severe flooding early Saturday. Water burst into shops and submerged cars on Lower High Street after the river Mono overflowed. Authorities issued several flood warnings for Monmouth, calling the situation a significant risk to life and the community. And talking of Portugal, the storm turned deadly as one person was killed and around 24 injured on Saturday. A tornado hit a camping site in Albufeira, destroying caravans, while more people were hurt at a nearby hotel. With the death toll rising to 3, the Algarve and nearby districts remain on amber alert. Brazilian lawyer Leonardo Mualart, known as Brazilian Superman, brought smiles on the face of many children as he visited child cancer patients and children with amputations in Ghana's Adiogire. The cancer ward erupted into life as Mualart, who is on a week-long maiden visit to Ghana, met children and their family members. He said his mission is to spread happiness everywhere. During his first trip to Africa, Mualart visits hospitals, schools and charities, poses for pictures with commuters on random street corners and generally tries to be what he calls a symbol of kindness and hope, all free of charge. Still to come on this edition of DD India Live. 8th edition of bilateral air exercise Garuda 25 between India and France begins. India captain Shubman Gill will not take any further part in the ongoing opening test against South Africa due to injury. And Durham dazzles as the Lumiere Festival casts a stunning shining spell across the night sky.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I am Tanvi Taneja. India and Brazil held the 3rd International Ayurveda Conference in Brazil's Sao Paulo to celebrate 40 years of Ayurveda there. The two-day event by Sri Vivekanand Cultural Centre, SVCC, and Konayu under Indian Council for Cultural Relations brought together experts from India and Latin America on the subject. Ambassador Dinesh Bhatia highlighted India-Brazil cooperation, while Secretary Vaidya Rajesh Kotecha emphasized the holistic wellness. The conference included lectures, discussions on Ayurveda, which is officially recognized in Brazil. Investigators probing the Delhi car blast suspect that triacetone triperoxide called TATP could be one of the key components of the IED that was in the car that exploded on Monday evening near Red Fort. Continuous combing operations continue across all the states. Security has been beefed up in the aftermath of the attack. Thorough checking is underway at various intersections. Ireland's ambassador to India, Kevin Kelly, said that the nation strongly stood against terrorism. He lauded the government for its prompt action in preventing further damage.
The people and the families who are affected. Ireland, of course, we stand completely against any kind of terrorism, and so for us, it's something that hopefully that the one good thing I think is that the government, the authorities here, managed to detect, and perhaps it could have been a much worse incident. But so for us, of course, we totally condemn any kind of incident of terrorism, and our thoughts and sympathies go with the families of those affected.
German Ambassador Philipp Ackermann said that it was obviously a terror attack and expressed condolences to the people of India.
It's a shocking event. We were taken by total surprise, and I'm extremely saddened to see what happened, and my feelings and my heart goes out to those who lost their loved ones, who are still in hospital. It is a very sad story. We have been following what came out in the news. It is a terror attack, very obviously, and therefore, my condolences go to not only the people but also the people of India.
All gates of the Lal Killa metro station have reopened for commuters 5 days after the Delhi blast near the Red Fort. The station had been closed as a precautionary measure following the explosion. After the blast, the Delhi Metro Rail Corporation announced on Thursday that the Lal Killa metro station would remain shut due to security concerns. Entry and exit at the station were temporarily suspended and services were halted under the security agency's provided clearance. The station, located on the Violet line of the Delhi Metro, serves as a key access point for several prominent landmarks, including the historic Red Fort, Jama Masjid and the bustling Chandni Chowk area. The Indian Air Force will participate in the 8th edition of the bilateral air exercise Garud 25 in France from Sunday. Indian Air Force will conduct this exercise Garud with the French Air and Space Force till the 27th of November. The Ministry of Defence said that this exercise aims to refine tactics and procedures in a realistic operational environment. The ministry added that it also provides an opportunity for professional interaction, exchange of operational knowledge and sharing of best practices between the two air forces. During the exercise, the Indian Air Force's Su-30 Mark I aircraft will operate alongside the French multi-role fighters in complex simulated air combat scenarios, focusing on air-to-air combat, air defence and joint strike operations. The 8th edition of the biennial joint bilateral exercise Ajay Warrior between the Indian and British Army will be conducted from 17th to 30th of November at the Mahajan Field Firing Ranges in Rajasthan. The exercises aim at building positive military relations, imbibe each other's best practices and promote the ability to operate together while undertaking company-level sub-conventional operations in urban and semi-urban environments under the UN mandate, in addition to developing interoperability, bonhomie, camaraderie and friendship between the two armies. The exercise reflects the shared commitment of India and the UK towards global peace and security while further deepening defence cooperation. The Army exercise comes shortly after India and the UK successfully held exercise Konkan off the west coast of India earlier in October this year. National Press Day is observed on 16th of November every year, celebrating the vital role of a free, responsible and credible press in India's democracy. The day commemorates the establishment of the Press Council of India in 1966, which functions as an independent watchdog to uphold journalistic standards and protect press freedom in India. This year's theme highlights safeguarding press credibility amid rising misinformation and emphasizing the importance of accurate and ethical reporting in strengthening India's democracy. And now let's give you some sporting action. India lost both the openers early in their pursuit for a victory target of 124 runs on day 3 of the low-scoring opening test against South Africa in Kolkata. Marco Jansen claimed 2 wickets in his first 7 deliveries to leave India reeling. Yashasvi Jaiswal fell for a 4-ball duck, while opening partner KL Rahul made 1 before he too perished. India were 21 runs for the loss of 2 wickets. Earlier, Temba Bavuma dragged South Africa back into the contest with an innings of tremendous grit. His unbeaten 55 runs was the only 50 by any batter on a minefield of a pitch where inconsistent bounce and spin made life difficult for the shot makers. The Indian Cricket Board said Captain Shubman Gill is under observation in hospital after suffering neck pain and will take no further part in the first test against South Africa. Gill felt pain in his neck after scoring a boundary on the second day of the game in Kolkata and left the field. The Board of Control for Cricket in India, BCCI, said he is currently under observation in a hospital. He will take no further part in the test match. He will continue to be monitored by the BCCI medical team. Gill faces a battle to be fit to lead the side in the second test in Guwahati, which is due to begin on November 22nd. And Greater Noida is set to host the World Boxing Cup Finals scheduled from today to November 20th at the Shahid Vijay Singh Pathak Sports Complex. The World Cup Finals are the season finale of the World Boxing Cup Series 2025, following the 3 World Cup stages held earlier in Brazil, Poland and Kazakhstan. The event will have 130 boxers from 18 countries, featuring the 8 best boxers of the year in each of 20 categories. India is competing in all 20 categories as the host will field the world champions Meenakshi, Nikhat Zareen, Jasmine and Sweetie Bora. Sweetie is making her comeback for the first time this year as Lavlina Borgosai has decided to withdraw from the tournament, citing an injury. India will also aim to win a few more medals in men's boxing from Abhinash Jambal and Hitesh, who had 2 medals each at this year's World Cup circuit. And Durham in England, its historic cathedral and city streets are glowed brightly at the Lumiere Festival, which cast its stunning light installations across the night sky. The biennial celebration once again turned the city into a vibrant open-air gallery, and with that, Durham closed the day shining brighter than ever. And with those stunning visuals from Durham, we wind up this edition of DD India Live. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on our different social media handles at DD India Live. You can also download our DD India mobile app for quick news and updates on the go. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from all of us here in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.